Story 1. This incident occurred in 2018 when I graduated from high school. Allow me to provide a quick overview of the Swiss school system. Typically, students attend school until 9th grade. Those who wish to pursue university education transfer to grammar high school from 8th to 12th grade. I chose to continue my studies and enrolled in high school. It's worth noting that in Switzerland, at least in my canton state, any grade below 75% is considered a failure. We have a rather stringent system in place. At high school, I quickly became friends with Chelsea, my current girlfriend, and Alicia. Alicia is the type of person who can be amusing in small doses. She often portrays herself as a victim and can only talk about herself. However, spending too much time with her can be emotionally draining. She never takes responsibility for her actions, often citing her upbringing in the foster care system as an excuse. This particular incident occurred about 2 months before our final exams. Graduating requires passing the final exams, of course. However, the finals only account for half of your eventual grade. The other half is determined by your last report card. For example, if I achieved in my final English exam, but had a C on my last report card, my eventual grade would be a B, and so on. Alicia struggled with this system because her last report card wasn't particularly impressive. She needed to excel in most subjects to graduate. One would think she'd take extensive notes and start studying early, right? Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. She procrastinated until 2 months before our finals, while Chelsea and I diligently studied. I was always the student who shared her notes in our class group chat for anyone interested. This detail becomes significant later. We had a lengthy list of topics we needed to master in mathematics. I wrote comprehensive notes for each subject and kept them in a folder in my locker. I only shared some of them in the group chat when someone inquired about a specific topic. One day, I went to my locker and my notes were missing. I panicked as I had spent weeks writing them. I searched for an entire week and experienced approximately 3 anxiety attacks, fearing I wouldn't pass and would have to redo all the work. That's when Alicia casually informed me that she had taken them the other day when I asked her to retrieve a book from my locker. She hadn't planned to tell me at all because, in her words, "It's not like you need them anyway, you had them long enough. If you didn't make copies, it's not my fault." Her blatant sense of entitlement was enough to inspire me to devise a plan. A cunning plan. Not only had she stolen my notes, but if I hadn't bothered her so much about it, she wouldn't have even told me she had taken them. She was merely a high school acquaintance, and I knew I'd never associate with her again after graduation. Frankly, I didn't care about what would happen to her. Her self-centered attitude was the final straw. I apologized for creating drama. "It's okay, you just are like that sometimes." I was about to lose my composure and continued my school day as usual. Alicia kept calling me about notes, even before this incident, especially my notes for various books. She had chosen the same books to avoid extra studying. I began giving her incorrect analyses and fabricated notes. They were obvious enough to be identified as wrong if she thought critically, but not too blatant. If she had read the books, she would have known it was nonsense. I did the same with our English books, French materials, German texts, chemistry notes, physics summaries, and psychology outlines. She already had my math notes, so I couldn't alter those, but I could fabricate information for the other subjects. After investing considerable time in creating false notes, I witnessed the outcome unfold a day before graduation. We went to a pub with our teacher to watch a football game. I don't even remember where she distributed our results. I passed with a 5.38 in Switzerland. Grades range from 1 to 6, with 6 being the best, so approximately an A. Alicia turned pale. She received a 3.21 equivalent to a D. She had failed all of her classes except mathematics and psychology. It appears she had relied solely on my notes without reading the assigned books or textbooks. I had to conceal a grin. My girlfriend still believes it was cruel, but honestly, it served as a reality check for her sense of entitlement and self-centeredness. From what I've heard, she is currently attempting to repeat the year and try again. Hopefully, this time without stealing her friend's notes. Edit. Thank you to everyone who explained the difference between a cup and a mug. Edit 2. Many are asking, and no, I don't regret my actions. To pass her finals, she needed to study and read her French, German, and English books. The task was not to simply memorize notes and bluff her way through the exams. The language finals, at least for the books, were conducted orally. If she had read the books, she would have known my notes were incorrect. So, in all honesty, it was her own fault. Story 2. I rented a small house from a man who owned a painting business. The power was off when we came to view the property, but he assured us everything worked and even included it in the contract. The place was dirty and poorly maintained, so we negotiated the security deposit down to $300. It turned out that the heating and air conditioning system didn't work, along with the refrigerator and dishwasher. I asked him to have someone inspect them. He responded with a string of insults. He called and left threatening voicemails. He would show up unannounced and let himself in. During one of these visits, I showed him that the crawlspace was flooded and had become a breeding ground for thousands, if not millions, of cockroaches and mosquitoes that would come up through the floor vents. There was absolutely no ductwork, even though he claimed the heating and air conditioning worked fine. He accused me of causing the flood myself, even though I showed him the source was a pipe that had rusted through. He refused to address any problems and said, "If you don't like it, then you can move. You can't pay for a bargain and expect to live in luxury." This man was generally terrible. Once, he hired someone from an online classified ad to cut down a tree in the rental property's yard. The man worked literally all day for the agreed $150, cut up and hauled off the tree. He returned that evening, just standing in the yard. I asked if I could help him. He said he was waiting for the owner to get paid. The owner kept replying, saying he was on the way but never showed up. Our neighbor told us he had punched the previous renter in the face and refused to pay him for a day's work for his company. He had bragged about renting to undocumented immigrants and not having to do anything because they wouldn't sue. We had a newborn baby, so we called his bluff and agreed to find a new place to live. We left the home in much better condition than we found it. He said he would mail us the security deposit, but never did. He dodged my phone calls until one day he called to say, "You aren't getting it back. You broke the contract when you left early, so go away." I was really upset because we were new parents and had very little money. That $300 was a big deal to us and a drop in the bucket for this man. He owned an upscale painting business and had 15 rental properties. The following week, I was online leaving negative reviews for his business when I clicked a link and noticed his website's domain had just expired. I knew what I had to do. I immediately bought it, then created a homepage with contact information for his biggest competitor. I emailed him from his old domain, asking him if he wanted to buy the website for $320, the cost of the security deposit plus the price I paid for the domain. He was furious. He started calling my workplace, threatening to sue my employer. He even contacted my parents and threatened to sue them. He left numerous threatening voicemails for me, saying he was going to harm me physically and that he knows where I live and has my social security number. I received emails from several review sites asking if I was trying to update the contact information for the business. He must have used his old domain's email as his contact email. I didn't want to get in trouble for impersonating his business, so I did not respond. The contact information was never changed. I received a few emails from potential clients. I called him and told him about the painting job request. I gave him the contact information for one of the clients to prove I wasn't making it up. I told him it was the last time I was going to do that for him and suggested he buy the website back in order to not miss out on any other jobs. He told me he was taking me to court. I told him I had recorded his threatening phone calls and saved all his texts and voicemails. He said he was going to sue me for illegally recording him, which is not illegal in my state. I said, "I look forward to seeing you in court where I countersue and press charges for harassing me," and I hung up. He called back and berated me for hanging up on him. I said, "Call me back when you can speak respectfully to me," and hung up again. We repeated this about 5 times. Each time he became more angry until the last time. He spoke respectfully and explained he hadn't received a single job in months. I suggested he focus more on creating a website to find business. He lost his temper and berated me again. 6 months passed, and he still hadn't bought the website from me. I received a call from him, begging me to do the right thing and give him the website back. I told him the current price was $350. 6 months later, I received another phone call. I told him the current price was $380. Eventually, he texted me to say, "I went out of business. I hope you're happy." I responded, "I hear having a website really helps your business. $380 and it's yours." He told me what a terrible person I am and said, "Karma's not kind." I responded, "Maybe if you stopped trying to take advantage of people, your karma wouldn't be so bad." That was the last time I ever heard from him. The major business listing sites confirmed his business did indeed close. I renewed the domain for another 2 years just in case he was bluffing. A few months later, I drove by his office to see if it was still there. It was empty with a "for rent" sign posted. I never got that $300 back and spent money on domain registrations, but it was totally worth it. Story 3. Back when I was still in university, I used to work for a hotel to make ends meet. When I started, the hotel urgently needed new personnel. So, I negotiated a deal with the old owner about getting to choose and pick shifts, allowing me to attend my courses and exams. Speaking some additional foreign languages, I also received a small bonus each month. The old owner was a great person. He owned multiple hotels, so I rarely saw him, but when he was in the house, he always made a point to have drinks with the staff, chat with us, and if we were free, he even invited those of us from the front desk who were not on shift to fancy restaurants. Fast forward a few years, and I was nearing the completion of my studies. It wouldn't have been long until I had to quit anyway, as I was more interested in working in my field of study. As part of my agreement with the old owner, I mostly chose to work night shifts, allowing me to attend my university courses during the day. To make up for my privileges, I had developed the habit of doing some extra work during the quiet hours of the night that other shifts would normally have to do. In contrast, I could have simply sat around doing nothing. People were grateful for the help in the beginning, and we became a rather close-knit group. But over time, people came and went. When the old owner retired and his unpleasant son took over the business as the new owner, I already feared the worst. The new owner didn't like me very much, though I never discovered the exact reason. At that point, I was nearly the sole veteran left from when I started. Among the tasks I had taken on was doing light clerical work to ease the manager's job in the morning. For that, I generally had to use the manager's network account. One night, while working on my lists, I logged into the manager's account and emailed to do my job. Then I saw an email with my name in the subject line. I know it's not polite to snoop, but of course, I read it. It turned out the new owner wanted to get rid of me. I still had my old employee contract with bonuses for foreign language abilities and was allowed by my contract to pick and choose shifts. I can only assume these privileges are what made the new owner dislike me. I have no idea if he had other reasons because, to be honest, these seem very weak to me. But he couldn't fire me without cause. Additionally, I would be owed severance if fired, and generally, there were not enough staff members in the shift rotation without me. Though the new owner didn't seem to understand that point, as the emails revealed, I looked for more emails concerning me and found them. There was an email chain between some of the employees, the manager, and the new owner. I was, of course, not copied on these emails as I was the disliked topic. The employees didn't like me monopolizing the night shifts because those paid better, and for every night you worked, you received a night bonus. The manager was the only one relatively neutral on the matter, and just curbed their enthusiasm to get rid of me, as they needed me to be fully staffed. The new owner and my colleagues actively conspired to create a hostile work environment so I would quit of my own volition. I was furious. I considered a variety of reactions, from egging their cars to setting fire to the hotel. But I settled on a less extreme method of revenge. I called my uncle at 2 a.m. asking for advice. My uncle is a lawyer. For the sake of proof, I forwarded myself all the emails. I took photos, printed them out, made copies, and filmed the whole process just to be sure. My uncle advised me to wait and see if things worsened, or if it was just empty talk. So, I gave it a few days, and things did take a turn for the worse. Snide remarks about my appearance, clothing, and so on were only the tip of the iceberg. Some colleagues remained just as professional as before. But the conspirators always left extra work for me or pawned off unpleasant duties they normally had to do onto me. I always kept a spare shirt and suit at work, just to have a change, which suddenly disappeared. One individual even started to threaten me with violence. But I remained steadfast. I would not give them the satisfaction of saving on the severance or giving in. I am resilient, after all. I did, however, stop doing any extra work I was not obligated to do, which, in the end, was the reason they used to fire me. They still had to pay me severance. The next day, my uncle, armed with a compiled proof of the emails and all documented harassment by my colleagues, served the hotel my lawsuit. It started with wrongful termination and ended with harassment. Reportedly, the manager turned pale when he realized where the emails must have come from. The new owner had been on vacation and had to cancel his expensive trip to France to deal with this. Their legal counsel advised them to settle. So, I accepted my severance and a substantial bonus on top. It was enough money to sustain me until the end of university without work. But that was not the extent of my revenge. I had gone after the new owner's money. In the next step, I went after the hotel itself. I had used all the spare time during night shifts alone to document every last violation of city, county, district, state, and federal law I could find. That ranged from minor issues like some harmless mold under the kitchen sink to substantial violations like unauthorized modifications to the building. The building was under a limited form of historical protection by federal law, on the grounds of being built and inhabited by somewhat important historical figures a few hundred years ago. So, every renovation or change in floor plans needed to be approved by a committee, which can take ages. There is also a grant paid to the new owner by the government for maintaining the building's integrity. So, with my uncle's help, I sent documentation of every violation I could find to the corresponding agency. In 1 month, everything from health, building code, fire safety to the finance and labor authorities scrutinized the hotel. In the end, it was the building and fire inspectors who shut the place down. The new owner had made substantial renovations to the top floor luxury apartments, which he used when he was in town. Consequently, the new owner had to repay the grant, pay fines for unauthorized alterations to the building, endangering his guests because something wasn't built correctly according to fire code, and had to close down operations until the building was fixed. I also tipped off a friend who had studied journalism and worked at a local paper. The paper ran an article on all the accumulated violations, which negatively impacted the business once it had reopened, as the newspaper article had led to terrible reviews. In the end, to afford all the fines, repayments, and building costs, the new owner sold the hotel. As the final blow, all the individuals who had tried to harass me out of my job lost their positions. Granted, the people who didn't do anything to me lost their jobs too. But they didn't do anything to stand up for me or help me either, so I don't feel too much remorse. The final act of retribution was related to the new owner's personal life. Whenever he was in town, he used to bring home companions of questionable repute. While this is not illegal in my country, he was married. It took some effort to get that information to the new owner's wife, but one of my former colleagues, who had quit before all this happened, had her email address, so I informed her about the new owner's activities when he was out of town. I don't know exactly what transpired, but they did divorce in the end. Make of that what you will.